This is a landlord-tenant case. Mr. Voda, you were suing your former tenant, Miss Simmons, for $4,500 for violating the terms of her lease and for leaving before the lease expired.
Yes.
Now, this was a year-to-year tenancy that you rented to her, and you say she was a bad tenant from the very beginning, that she smoked like a chimney, and that she violated the terms of her lease by letting someone live there without your written permission. She finally terminated the lease by leaving before the year was up. You, Miss Simmons, say that he was a nasty bully of a landlord, and that he would pop in whenever he wanted to and generally intimidate you, and that when you asked him to fix things, he yelled at you. Finally, he jacked up your rent by $400. And the reason you left early is because he began eviction proceedings against you. So you owe him nothing. Now, Mr. Voda, why don't you tell us about the unit that you rented to Miss Simmons?
Well, the lease ran for almost 2 years. It was a auto-renew lease. So for the first 12 months, it was set at a certain rate. And then due to the violations of smoking and failure to repair items they broke themselves, I decided that they could stay if they wanted to pay extra. So I raised the rent to $1,900 a month from...
Okay. So it was a two-bedroom unit?
2-bedroom, 1 bath. And it was 2 people that were authorized to live there.
Miss Simmons, who were you living with there?
I was living with another family member of mine.
And both of you signed the lease?
Yes, sir.
Now, at some point, Mr. Voda, you said that she violated the terms of your lease?
Right. So on the second term, so the lease auto-renewed after 12 months, and subsequently during the January of 2025, I was remodeling the next door unit. So I was working next door, and day to day, I started to see some things that really shocked me about new faces, new people, new cars.
Was she paying
the rent?
Was
been paid January, all the way up to January of 25, yes. And then subsequently, until she vacated early, she paid. But she vacated 2 months early.
Miss Simmons, why don't you tell us why you left early?
Because he was the type of landlord that just ride by and take pictures.
You told us about an incident where you once called to complain about an air conditioner.
Air conditioner. It was on the weekend. The air conditioner went out, and I texted him. He told me don't text him on the weekend because he's not coming to fix anything.
Now, Mr. Voda, do you remember that incident?
My contract clearly states that I have posted office hours. I'm available to my tenants just like any business.
Doesn't matter. It was the air conditioner that was out in Florida, and it was hot, even if it's on the weekend. Okay,
let's get right to the lease, because I think a lot of the problems here you say were what you claim were her violating the lease, right? One of them was smoking. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, on one air conditioning request for repair, there was a pile of cigarette butts in an ashtray right on the couch. There was also some signs of other smoking items, not necessarily that you buy in packages. And I questioned the family member, and he admitted that he's smoking in the unit. And I said, well, that's a clear violation. You're not supposed to be smoking.
Okay. Did she ever admit to smoking inside the place? Miss Simmons?
No.
Were you ever smoking inside the place?
No, I smoked outside the house, outside the apartment.
Okay. So you wrote a letter to them increasing the rent based upon that, right?
Yes, I did. Well, basically, that due to your smoking in the unit when you're not supposed to, I decided rather than to move for eviction or termination.
He only assumed that he was...
Hold on a second. Let's hear from Mr. Voda.
I just raised the rent.
You raised the rent by how much?
$400 a month.
So in the middle of the lease, you raised the rent.
It was on the renewal. They had the option not to pay it. They had the option to vacate because the lease was terminating, and it was 60 days prior.
When was the lease terminated? During the 1-year period?
It ran for 12 months. 60 days prior to the end of that, either she can tell me or I could tell her to leave, or I can change the rent, which I did.
Did you choose to pay it?
No.
No. Okay. Well, then you began eviction proceedings, right?
No. It was 10 months later that the eviction proceedings began.
So let's get to that letter that you're referring to. Considering Antoine's recent admission of smoking in the unit, which is against your written lease, the cost to maintain the property upon renewal of your lease will be $1,900 if paid on the first of month. So if she renewed.
And they did. They stayed.
They stayed.
I've never seen it.
What tenant was this sent to? Antoine and Carla.
Well, the other family member, as you stated, is who the letter's addressed to. Because to be honest with you, I wasn't aware that Carla even smoked. I knew the family member did.
But why did you raise the rent for her?
Both parties are responsible for whatever's in the lease, whether...
She's responsible for the conduct of someone else.
Exactly, because she's on the contract.